Trade talks are continuing this week after President Trump granted the EU an extension until July 9th for the 50% tariffs that he threatened on Friday. Joining us right now is former Commerce Secretary under President Bill Clinton, Bill Daley, who also served as President Obama's White House Chief of Staff. Bill, thank you for being here today. Where do you want to start? With the bill that's making its way through, or with the tariffs?
First of all, you got to admire Speaker Johnson's leadership in getting that through with such a slim majority. The president obviously weighed in heavily and got it done. But this dance between the House and Senate, we see every time there's a big bill like this,
but
whether it's controlled Democrat or Republican.
The reason that Mike Johnson doesn't want them meddling with it, in his words, is that it will then have to go back to a vote to the House if they change it substantially.
And they will change it.
Yeah.
That's just the process. And you've got this hawks in the Senate, as you mentioned, who want more deficit, more cuts. You've got Josh Hawley saying, and the president, no Medicaid cuts at all. So, there's very little place especially when you're putting forward a $1 trillion defense budget, there's very little space to play in if you're saying we've got to make serious cuts. On the other hand, you're not going to cut some of the entitlements, which are the fastest growing pieces of the federal budget.
We know it's a complicated dance. We know that it's not going to be easy, but if they don't get something passed, you're talking about a tax hike on every American, and that's pretty tough.
They'll get it passed. They will get it passed. It may not be before the 4th of July. It may be closer to the end of the year. And usually when something big happens, it's Christmas holiday season that forces the decision to be made for Congress for most large pieces of legislation.
What about the debt ceiling, though? That window is going to be August.
Yes. And quite frankly, I don't know if you saw, there was a piece over the weekend. President Obama's former CBO chief said we should do away with the debt ceiling. Okay. It obviously is not controlling any spending. And it just becomes this political fight every couple of years. On the other hand, you could argue if you take that off, then it's Katie by the door, and there are no even pretend controls on the deficit. But everybody blows by that every year anyway. So it seems to be just a political fight. So I think Congress would be smart to do away with it, but then bring some reason back into the actual process. That's supposed to.
Do you think the Medicaid stuff that's in there now, Bill, is draconian? And you were Commerce Secretary under a president that did some pretty good work with welfare reform and work requirements that used to be. I don't know if it was I guess it was bipartisan.
Everything was bipartisan at one time.
Well, right now, do you think that they're going too far, or?
It's in the eye of the beholder. Obviously, are
you allowed to say it's okay?
No, I think there needs to be reform. There needs to be some changes. Is it draconian? It's in the eye of the beholder. If I'm really
you are the beholder,
it,
so what is it? Is it draconian?
We're beholding you.
I think people will feel the effect of it, and it will be real for a lot people.
But
did you feel that way? I guess when you were doing it.
And so does the deficit. Pardon me?
Did you feel that way when you were doing it?
We thought this is now 14 years ago.
I know, but
we thought there was a chance to begin to slow the rate of growth.
No, I understand that, but it's the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
So
right now, I think these are serious cuts to Medicaid. Yes, I do.
That are more meaningful than the cuts that you were making at the time.
Yes, definitely. Yes, because it's exponentially much larger. More people are dependent upon it.
But should there be work requirements, I guess? I mean, that was something in the Clinton administration.
Yeah, I don't think the work requirements are draconian. But I think, again, it's how that then gets interpreted.
Let me ask you a different question. In terms of the bond vigilantes and folks saying this doesn't really make sense, this math.
Yeah.
What kind of tax increases do you think that Democrats would otherwise be supportive of, if they would be, given all of this?
Oh, I think the Democrats always love tax increases, so I think that's a given. I will make a comment. When it was speculated that the president wanted a tax increase on the very wealthy.
Yep.
To me, that would have been an incredible move by the president if he could have pulled it off.
Raising the high end, or?
Mm-hmm. Because it would have potentially fundamentally taken away the one argument the Democrats have always had, and that is, tax the wealthy. Republicans won't do it. He backed off. But that could have been part of his fundamental attempt to change the political dynamic in the country.
Well, Democrats want to go back up on corporate. Would you have carved out the subchapter? Would you have carved out the non-C corporations on that? Because that's different. You're raising taxes on almost every small business in the country.
Right. But we had a pretty strong economy when the rates were a little higher. Is there a play in there? Yes. Do I think it has to be at what it was when the president passed his tax cut 6 years ago, whenever it was? No, I think it could go up higher, and the economy's not going to be cratered.
Let's talk about what you think might happen. If this is going to get passed one way or another, I guess the question is where those compromises are made. Is this something like you suggest, where they go back to the high end and he does basically what Clinton was doing by tightening the rules on those things, or what Nixon was doing?
I don't know if he can do that with his slim majority in the House, and I think the Speaker and you know the House is extremely sensitive to being jammed by the Senate, and the Speaker's words were that. But it happens. Right. Because the whole thing was structured in a way that the House represents the sort of heat of the moment, and the Senate steps back and deals with longer-term issues.
So what doesn't go? Is it some of the things the president promised on the campaign trail? Would it be tips, taxes on tips, taxes on overtime, taxes on Social Security? Would that go away?
And I also, but I also think the SALT, to be frank with you,
should go lower.
Yeah, it should go lower.
All right.
So, I mean, nothing dramatic happened at 10,000 deduction for any of those who are.
No, and by the way, by capping it at an income of $500,000, there's not as many people you're going to be hitting with that anyway.
Right.
So
I think there's play there. They'll lose some votes in the House. But I mean, they've got a Herculean task.
If you were a betting man,
and
you were to look at a calendar, when do you think all this gets resolved?
Well after the 4th of July.
Well after.
They may have to run a separate
before Labor Day?
Maybe because of the debt ceiling. Now, the Treasury can say we found sources. We could kick it out further. We'll probably get to August, and they'll say it's now October or September. But putting this together is going to be extremely difficult in 4 weeks before the 4th of July. So maybe August. My opinion is more likely later in the year.
Like in September, October?
Yep. Wow. But it will happen. But I'd be shocked if it happens by the 4th of July.